greatest form of control is where you think you're free when you're being fundamentally manipulated and dictated to. One form of dictatorship is being in a prison cell and you can see the bars and touch it. The other one is sitting in a prison cell but you can't see the bar, you think you're free. What the human race is suffering from is mass hypnosis. We are being hypnotized by people like this. Newsreaders, politicians, teachers, lecturers. We are in a country and in a world that is being run by unbelievably sick people. The chasm between what we're told is going on and what is really going on is absolutely enormous.
It's like we all know what's going down.
Welcome back to The Mind of a Minority. I'm your host, Charles Smart. Let me go ahead and remove my PPE. In this episode, I told you that we'd be doing a deep dive into all of the events leading up to what's happened right now. That it's really hard to pick a point in time in our history to really start from. I want to go all the way back to 2014. So this is the most significant and relevant information that I could find. A 2014 moratorium or ban on health industries increasing the lethality of disease-causing agents such as viruses or bacteria. Now, why is this relevant, you might ask? Well, let me explain how arguably the most trusted man advising the Trump administration right now was guilty of some very, very sus activity. Did you know that Dr. Anthony Fauci authorized $3.7 million to research coronaviruses that came from bats? And he did this in none other than, you guessed it, Wuhan, China, of all places. I don't know about you, but that sounds like treason to me. All right, now, as if that wasn't enough already, spending $3.7 million in taxpayer money in Wuhan, China, you spent that money figuring out how to make coronaviruses from bats more virulent and lethal. Okay, $3.7 million. That's a lot of money. But what if I told you Anthony Fauci authorized yet another $3.7 million to be spent on the same exact practices in the same exact place? This is 2019, last year. Okay, yeah, maybe they were doing some research on these viruses in order to figure out how they could protect us from them in the future. But considering everything that's happened right now, Fauci sounded pretty sure of himself when he said this.
As you heard from the introduction, that I have been around for a while and have had the opportunity and the privilege and the pleasure of serving in 5 administrations. I thought I would bring that perspective to the topic today, is the issue of pandemic preparedness. And if there's one message that I want to leave with you today based on my experience, and you'll see that in a moment, is that there is no question that there will be a challenge to the coming administration in the arena of infectious diseases, both chronic infectious diseases in the sense of already ongoing disease, and we have certainly a large burden of that, but also there will be a surprise outbreak.
Yeah, that was my thought too. You know, I did a little bit more digging into this, and it turns out that there are coronaviruses that have patents on them already. Now, I have to admit, nothing that I came across in my study yet, and maybe never, was enough for me to come here to you today and honestly say I can have an opinion as to whether or not it's important. It's my understanding that you can't patent something that is naturally occurring. So that means these coronaviruses are manufactured viruses that have patents on them, which you can see right here. So I've shown you that these viruses exist and they do have patents. Anthony Fauci was spending money on bat coronaviruses. He did it in violation of a memorandum. He then in 2017 said that this administration will face a surprise pandemic, and nobody is really talking about how coronaviruses have patents on them right now. So I would like to focus on events that happened in the year 2019. It's quite interesting. Let's start off with how China declared their first case on December 8th of 2019. So that's really close to the end of the year. Did you know that in 2019, more CEOs retired or resigned than in any year in American history? 1,640. So are we supposed to believe that there was no insider information as to what was going on here? I mean, just for that year alone, look, here's an article from August explaining how that August may very well be the 5th month where more than $10 billion was sold in the stock market in a single month. And on average, $600 million every day was sold in the stock market. Look, a lot of these things by themselves might seem pretty innocuous, but if you actually think about them all together, it sounds a lot more like a plan or a coordinated effort or people who are working together. January, before this was even classified as a pandemic, another 219 CEOs left their positions at their companies. And I mean, I'm not talking about just normal, everyday, run-of-the-mill CEOs. I mean, listen, I'll give you 10 examples right here. Larry Page, CEO of Alphabet, Google and YouTube's parent company. Dennis Muhlenberg, CEO of Boeing Airliner Company. Susan Desmond-Hellmann, CEO of the nonprofit Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Oscar Munoz, I don't know how to say it. He's the CEO of United Airlines. I should probably know how to say it. Tim Sloan, CEO of Wells Fargo. Steve Nelson, the CEO of United Healthcare. CEO of Rite Aid, John Standley. Stephen Kandrian, MetLife Insurance CEO. Devin Winnig, CEO of eBay. And he left abruptly because eBay was considering selling off all of their assets. And then last but not least, the man of the hour himself, Bill Gates, steps down from the boards of both Microsoft and Berkshire Hathaway. Now, let me tell you what I think is going on here. And no, this is not financial advice. Don't make any trades or whatever based on what I'm about to tell you. But to all of my buddies out there who have been in the market, this is what I think has happened. CEOs have been told to take profits, sell off all of their shares. And when this stimulus came out, the trillions of dollars in bailouts that the federal government is passing, which is going to absolutely destroy the United States economy, a lot of speculation about a comeback started to circulate. We noticed that stocks started to rally. Now, I believe a catalyst to that rally was the reinvestment of billions and billions, possibly trillions of dollars into the stock market by these same very people who have sold off their shares. No, I don't have proof of it yet, but they did this back in the crash of like 08, 09. And so once these stock prices rise, and because clearly they're in the know, they're going to sell off again. and the stock market's going to fall even further. Think about it. People are not going to restaurants. They're not going to bars. They're not flying around as much on planes. They're not in trains. People are not in hotels. All of these businesses, we're practicing social distancing. People are out of work. They're talking about record-breaking numbers of unemployment right now. Billions and billions, trillions of dollars that are just being printed and distributed to people all over the country. But we're seeing the stock market go up. The stock market going up is not consistent with what's really happening. And I think that a lot of folks who are actually paying attention noticed yesterday and the day prior, some of those stocks started walking right off a cliff. And to those of my buddies who were caught up in it, I'm sorry. I did try to warn some of you. I didn't tell all of you. But again, like I said, I don't give financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. I digress. Let's move on. I want to take a look at the city of Wuhan itself, okay? Because it's been popping in the Hubei province, in case you haven't noticed. In October, the Military World Games, or the Military Olympics, whatever it's called, was carried out right there in Wuhan. Go ahead, take a look for yourself. So as you just saw, you've got soldiers from everywhere converging on Wuhan. It's a pretty good way to get a virus to spread all the way around the world. I was going to bring up something else that happened in Wuhan, China, that's really significant, but it's been a result of a lot of videos being taken down lately. And it has something to do with telecommunications technology. No, it doesn't cause a virus. I'm not saying that. Let's go on to the next subject. How many of you have heard of Event 201? Let me go ahead and share literally, this is a super condensed highlight reel of exactly what Event 21 was.
It began in healthy-looking pigs. A new coronavirus spread silently within herds. Gradually, farmers started getting sick. Infected people got a respiratory illness with symptoms ranging from mild flu-like signs to severe pneumonia. The sickest required intensive care. Many died.
The mission of the Pandemic Emergency Board is to provide recommendations to deal with the major global challenges arising in response to an unfolding pandemic.
In 3 months, we could be approaching 10 million cases.
We're at the start of what's looking like it will be a severe pandemic. And there are problems emerging that can only be solved by global business and governments working together.
We have known about CAPS-like viruses in animals and people for decades, but have not been successful at developing a licensed vaccine. I am not optimistic about having a vaccine in time to be relevant during this pandemic.
A global stockpile would certainly help ensure more rational and strategic allocation, but the reality is that we don't have the logistics capability, even within the UN, to bring that together in one place and run it.
The question is, can you, through this international mechanism, really promote commitments to doing this as quickly as possible and give people a sense that actually if they contribute more, that they will have a better chance of protecting their own populations and their country's security and health.
How should national leaders, businesses, and international organizations balance the risk of worsening disease that would be caused by the continued movement of people around the world against the risks of profound economic consequence of travel and trade bans?
If there's some sense that there's a UN institution that can do all of this, then I worry we're suffering from a delusional disorder on the power of the UN. It's really important to get those industries and their trade associations and an efficient leadership established which is decentralized but has a collective responsibility and accountability. And that needs to be supported by the public leadership.
What is essential, what is non-essential travel, we have to clarify this. Otherwise, if we go down to 20% bookings over a long period, the company will run down. That's a fact.
So the policy question for this board now is, how should financial resources be prioritized? Are there nodes that we cannot allow to fail? What is your sense of priorities? We don't have money to pay for all of these urgent problems.
So at the moment, we want the fund, right? You need the money. So where's the money? So government kind of supplies some money. A lot of, private sectors, some are sitting here, you have some money. But now you need a really coordinated, centralized efforts.
Governments need to be willing to do things that are out of their historical perspective, or for the most part, it's really a war footing that we need to be on.
We shouldn't underestimate the power of entrepreneurship. We need to escalate that, whether it's through the government's helping with tax breaks or subsidies of that nature to increase manufacturing of those types of products. It can happen quickly. A Marshall-type plan, don't mean to say that exactly, but a Marshall Plan that can go into effect can stimulate change very quickly.
Countries are reacting in different ways as to how best to manage the overwhelming amounts of dis and misinformation circulating over the internet. In some cases, limited internet shutdowns are being implemented to quell panic. Limited internet shutdowns are being implemented to quell panic.
How much control of information should there be, and by whom? And how can false information be effectively challenged? And what if that false information is coming from companies or from governments?
We're at a moment where the social media platforms have to step forward and recognize the moment to assert that they're a technology platform and not a broadcaster is over.
There's a lot
they in fact have to be a participant in broadcasting accurate information and partnering with the scientific and health communities to counterweight, if not flood the zone of accurate information, because to try to put the genie back in the bottle of the misinformation and disinformation is nigh impossible.
One thing we haven't spoken about, and I'm wondering whether it's time to talk about this, is a step up from the part of the government on enforcement actions against fake news.
So, Agenda 21, Pretty interesting, yeah? Well, I want to know what you guys think in the comments section down below. So, thank you again. I really appreciate it. I love you all. Wish you the very best. I'll see you soon. P.S. ladies and gentlemen, I almost forgot to tell you, Tuesday next week, May 5th, 5-minute video on 5G technology. Is it a weapons system? You decide. Thanks again. I'll see you later.